details, but before we get to the in-person part, I want to talk a little bit about why we gather. Why do we gather? Well, in our baptismal covenant, one of our vows is that we will continue in the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, and in the breaking of bread, and in the prayers. This is on page 304 of the Book of Common Prayer, if you're curious. Then, if you look in our catechism, which is the outline of the faith in the back of the prayer book, on page 857, it says, in corporate worship, in other words, when we gather all together on a Sunday morning, we unite ourselves with others to acknowledge the holiness of God, to hear God's word, to offer prayer, and to celebrate the sacraments. Now, what we have learned in this COVID-19 global pandemic is that we can gather in many more ways than we had perhaps ever imagined. We can find connection and community through things like a Facebook live stream, Zoom meetings, phone calls, writing old-fashioned letters, so on and so forth. Now, person-to-person or in-person conversation and fellowship and prayer is what we long for because we're human beings. We are social creatures by nature. You know, God made the first people, Adam and Eve, for each other. God made people to be a family, and so it's natural that we want to gather together. So keeping all that in mind, we are going to try a modified COVID-19 pandemic-style Holy Eucharist next Sunday, August 9th at 9:30 in the morning. And each Sunday after that, we will do this service as we are allowed to by public health officials and under the guidance of our Bishop of the Diocese of Chicago. Here's what you need to do if you want to attend in person. And please, I want to emphasize that you don't have to do that. We will still be here on live stream. We will still have drive-up home Holy Communion for those who want that, using the little World Communion cup that came sealed from the factory, okay? And if you are like, I don't want to drive for the home communion, but I'd like the home communion, can I get it delivered to me? Sure, why don't you call me and let's figure that out. We can arrange to have that delivered to your doorstep and left at your doorstep. If Domino's Pizza can do it, I'm pretty sure St. Charles Episcopal Church can do it. Okay, everybody? And that's a big smile on my face when I say that. Okay, here's some of the details. All of this is written in a letter, but I just wanted to say it verbally for all of us so we hear it again. You must RSVP. Please, you must RSVP. To keep our proper physical distancing of a minimum of 6 feet, we must limit the number of people in this room, okay? You must wear a mask. You must wear your mask over your nose and your mouth, or some kind of face covering. It could be a scarf, what have you. You will be seated by our health and safety team to maintain a 6-foot distance minimum. Now, if you come with other members of your household, you of course can sit closer to one another, but households will be separated by at least a 6-foot minimum. We ask that you please come prepared to only use the restroom if urgently needed. This cuts down on the amount of surfaces that are being touched by people where transmission could possibly occur, like light switches and bathroom fixtures, that sort of thing. We ask that you please enter through the front door and plan to exit through the back doors. Please do not bring any food or beverages. Ludke Hall, our parish hall, is closed. Please do not congregate in the building once you've been ushered out of the sanctuary. This is very important, these next couple of things. If you feel sick, stay home. Please. Familiarize yourself with the symptoms of COVID-19. And if you suspect that you feel any of those, please stay home and consult your physician as necessary. This one is also important. If you think that you may have been exposed to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, regardless of their symptoms, in the past 2 weeks, please stay home, and I encourage you to consult with your physician. If you're in an at-risk category, please carefully consider if being at an indoor church event is advisable. I leave that in your hands, but I just put that out. Now I want you to know that I recently was exposed to COVID-19 by someone who was asymptomatic. In other words, they didn't have any symptoms that they were aware of. And yet, when they went for a test, they tested positive for COVID-19. I was exposed to this person at an event here at the church. Now, I went and had a test on Friday, and I got the results yesterday late afternoon, and I have tested negative. I was advised that because my exposure was very low risk, in other words, we were wearing masks, we were more than 6 feet apart from one another, we were outdoors, there was no eating or drinking, so the masks did not come off at any time. In other words, we were doing what we're supposed to do, which is wonderful, and I want to applaud us for doing that. That was considered a very low-risk situation, but I went ahead and had the test anyway, just out of an abundance of caution. I was told that because the test was negative and it was such a low-risk exposure, that I could carry on with my life. In other words, I can keep following the CDC guidelines, wearing the face covering, maintaining the distance, washing my hands, so on and so forth. But there was an interesting thing that my physician said, which was that for the next 2 weeks, and really for always during this pandemic, that I should act as if I were sick, or act as if I could be sick. And I said, wow, I think that's what I was supposed to be doing all along. And the physician said, yes. This is really what we all need to be doing. We all need to be conducting ourselves in such a way that says, I could have COVID-19, I could not, I don't really know. So I'm going to follow these precautions like the face covering, distancing, limiting my interactions, washing my hands, just to be safe and to keep other people safe. And my friends, this is what I want to do. I want to serve you, and one of the ways I serve you is by doing everything I can and asking you to do everything you can to keep us safe, to keep us from transmitting the COVID-19 virus. I want to say a word about anonymity. This person who unwittingly exposed me and others to COVID-19, again, it was a low-risk situation, but this person did the right thing by contacting me immediately. I was then able to care for myself and to notify others in the group so they could care for themselves. And so I want to thank that person who came forward and told me immediately what was happening. And I want you to know that I am not going to break this person's anonymity. This is a privacy issue. It is not for gossip, who that person is or anything else. It is not any of my business to tell that person's story. It's not any of your business either. Their story belongs to them We talk about that in our rule of life, and I take that very seriously. So I'm saying that because I want you to know that I will do the same for anyone else. And my friends, there are going to be others. There are going to be other people we interact with in our ministry here at St. Charles who will then test positive for COVID-19. That's just how it is. Now, I hope that's not the case. But a virus doesn't care who you are, and it doesn't care who you encounter, okay? I'm not upset with this person at all. I'm grateful that they were responsible and notified us immediately when they knew. And I want you to say this just again, please know that you can tell me these things and I will not break your anonymity. No, I will not. Now, I've just outlined how we can do the best we can do to avoid transmitting this virus and do our small part to curb the spread of COVID-19 in our church and in our city and in our county. I'm going to be wearing a face covering at all times in ministry as a precaution and as an act of love for my family and for my neighbors, and I'm smiling. And I thank you for understanding my choice, my imperative to wear this face covering. I also want to say, my friends, please do not despair. Take heart, God is with us, and all of this too shall pass. We are learning so much. Some of these lessons are hard to learn. And I pray there are some joyful lessons you're learning during this time as well of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, there's lots of other announcements that were in our pulse. I'm not going to go over them today because I spent so much time talking about this, which was very important. So, I encourage you, if you have not read your email newsletter, The Pulse, please do, and see about things that are happening in the congregation. Many of them are happening remotely. And you'll also find our parish prayer list there as well. Also, a reminder that we do have prayer requests. You can make them this morning in the comments of the Facebook live stream. And thank you so very much to Jan Hoffman, who is continuing in this ministry of monitoring those prayer requests and transmitting them to us here at the church via text message. And also a reminder that we will have a distribution of home Holy Communion from 11 to 11:30 in the back parking lot. Now, we did ask that you RSVP for that as well. If you forgot, please make a comment in the Facebook live stream and Jan will forward that message to us as well. I think that covers all of my announcements. I'm glad you're here. It's good to see you. I'm so glad that I was able to be here with you this morning from here instead of from my patio, which is where I would have been had I needed to be quarantined. So, we will begin in just a few moments with Holy Communion, Holy Eucharist, excuse me. And if you want to follow along, this leaflet is on our website, stcharlesepiscopal.org. Thank you.